All members of the committee should have their video on but will remain muted until the chairman invites them to speak. All members of the press and public will remain muted unless they have registered to speak, and the chairman will let them know when they can make their representation. The format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published, and a copy of the officer presentations can be found on the committee website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I also welcome you to this meeting of the Development Committee? I'm Councillor Filmer, I'm Chairman of the committee. Just a bit of background as to how we're going to operate today. Each application will be taken in turn. The officers will outline the application. That will then be followed by the public speaking time. Members will then debate and decide the applications. For members of the committee wishing to speak, can I please just remind you to indicate via the online chat, and you'll be called in turn. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on this proposal in turn, confirming that they've been present throughout the application, and they will vote either for, against, or abstain. Votes will then be counted and the result announced. I'll now ask the officers and councillors who will be taking part in today's meeting to confirm that they can see and hear me and to introduce themselves. So if we start with the planning officers, please, and Mrs. De Vries.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I can confirm I can see and hear everyone. And I'm Mrs. De Vries. I'm going to be the lead officer this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Liam Evans. I'm Senior Planning Officer, and I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. And Ms. Elvey.
Thank you, Chairman. I am Amelia Elvey, and I can confirm that I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. From our legal team, Mrs. Lehman.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Dawn Lehman. I am the legal advisor to the committee, and I can confirm that I can hear and see you.
Thank you. From our Democratic Services, Mrs. Nicholson.
Thank you, Chairman. My name's Layla Nicholson. I'm the committee manager, and I can confirm that I can see and hear you.
Thank you very much. If we then move to the members of the committee, if we could start with, is Councillor Granter present?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Sorry, a bit late. I had a job getting through this morning. My fault. Yes, I'm Councillor Graham Granter. I represent the Fairfax ward in Bridgewater. I can hear you loud and clear this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm Councillor Alec Glassford, representing Fairfax ward, and I can hear and see everything.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Cathy Pearce, West Dover ward, Bridgewater, and I confirm I can see and hear you all.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Councillor Liz Scott from Axvale Ward near Axbridge. I can confirm I can hear and see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Sedgemoor District Councillor Alistair Hendry, Burnham-on-Sea Central. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Facey. Councillor Facey, we can't. That's all right. Carry on.
Yeah, so to start again, Chairman. Good morning. Yeah, Councillor Mike Facey, Burnham-on-Sea North, and I confirm I can see and hear everybody. And do apologise, Chairman, for my previous absence, but we're now back firing all cylinders, Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and it's good to have you back. Councillor Revens.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Bill Revens, North Peloton Ward. I can confirm I can see and hear everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, good morning. Yes, Councillor Stuart Kingham. I'm ward member for the West Podens, and I can confirm I can see and hear all.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Councillor Alan Bradford, North Peloton Ward, and I can confirm and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
Good morning, Chairman. Brian Bolt, Ward Councillor for Cannington and Wemden. I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Councillor Liz Perry, covering the King's Isle ward, and I can confirm I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Tony Grimes, Deputy Chairman, Borough Ward. I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally myself, as I say, Councillor Filmer, and I've been able to see and hear all the members and officers who've spoken so far. We'll also just mention that as well as the members and officers who've introduced themselves, there are other members of council and officers who are present here to observe the meeting, and that includes the portfolio holder for development who is with us today. If we move then on to the agenda itself, item 1 is apologies for absence. Mrs. Nicholson, do we have any apologies for this morning?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillor Gibson and Councillor Murphy.
Thank you very much, and all other members have introduced themselves. Item 2 is urgent business. I am not advised that there's any urgent business that we have before us today that isn't covered by our agenda. Item 3 is public speaking time for members of the public. For those of you who've registered to speak this morning, the process we'll follow is the applications will be introduced in turn. The officers will give the background and detail to the application, and then we'll then ask you to come to address the committee. That will be done by Mrs. Nicholson enabling your microphone so that you can be heard, and we'll ask you just to confirm that the microphone is working. You'll then have 3 minutes to address the committee. You'll have a warning when there's 1 minute left to go, and Mrs. Nicholson will ring a bell. And Mrs. Nicholson, if you could just demonstrate. Thank you very much. That bell going off means that you've got 1 minute left to go. And when you get to the end of the 3 minutes, we'll obviously call time and you will have to stop. If we move then on to the next item, which is declarations of interest, are there any declarations that members have? And if you can indicate in the chat, please. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, on page 18, it's in my ward, but I've taken no part in any discussions on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the application in Breen. I've got Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, personal interest as a ward and town councillor for the Northgate application on page 1, but I have not taken part in any discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Granter. I think your microphone might be muted, Councillor Granter.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the same as Councillor Pearce, member of Bridgewater Town Council, personal. That's no discussions whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further declarations, I have 2 to make. One is the application on page 16 in Breen, which is within the county division that I represent, but I've taken no part in any discussions on that application. And the application on page 24, which is in my district council ward, and again I've taken no part in any of the discussions on that application. If there's no further declarations for members of the public, it's important if there's any background that members bring to an application. The declarations you've heard today are all what are described as non-predetermination declarations. In effect, we have a standing order within this committee which says that either members can get involved at the town and parish council level in decision making, or alternatively they get involved at the district level. They can't do both because there is a concern that if they've made a decision at an earlier stage, it would be perceived that they have already made up their mind when they come to this meeting. So in order to avoid that, members take no part at that town parish level and therefore are free to come to this meeting, debate and vote on applications. And that's the declarations you've heard today. Other declarations include personal and prejudicial declarations, which we haven't had any today, but if there was a prejudicial declaration, it would mean that members could potentially be prejudiced by their knowledge of an application, an applicant or an agent, and if that's the case, they are not allowed to be involved in the discussions at all and will leave the room. But as I say, today we've only had non-predetermination declarations. If we move then to the next item on the agenda that members have, which is item 5, minutes, which relate to the meeting of the 19th of May. And Mrs. Nicholson, I think you have an update to those minutes before we move on.
Thank you, Chairman. It's on page 3, second paragraph of the application at 44 Rodway. Just a sentence that needs amending, and it should say the officer confirmed that there is draft supplementary guidance on the self-billed policy. Although endorsed by the council, this has not undergone public consultation and is therefore not formally adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other amendments that members have to those minutes? Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to move the minutes.
And that's with the amendment that's just been read out by Mrs. Nicholson?
With the amendments, yes.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Evans, I think you were typing, but nothing came up. Councillor Evans.
Thank you. May I second the amended minutes? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Grimes. Were you wanting to...
No, sorry, Chairman. I was just going to second that.
Okay, and Councillor Hendry, you've come up on the chat. Was that also to second?
It was, Mr. Chairman, so I'll pass on that one. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you very much. So, members, we've had the minutes moved and seconded with the amendment as read out by Mrs. Nicholson. I think what I'll do is I'll ask if there is anyone who wishes to dissent from the minutes being signed. If that is, that's probably the easiest way to move forward on this one. I'm seeing no dissent whatsoever, so in which case I'm going to take that as a unanimous support for the minutes to be signed as amended, as outlined by Mrs. Nicholson. Right, members, that moves us on to the next item, which is item 6, which is the planning applications themselves. The first application we have before us is the application for Northgate. And if I could ask Mr. Evans, please, to introduce this one, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Bear with me a second. Sorry about this. Trying to present my desktop. And okay, wait a second. Apologies for this, members. I'm struggling to present my desktop at the moment, so bear with me a second.
That's okay. If there is a technical problem, maybe in the past we've had some assistance from Mrs. De Vries to be able to present hers if there is more of a difficulty, but I'll leave that between you, Mr. Evans, and Mrs. De Vries to work out.
Thank you, Chairman. I just don't seem to have the option at the moment. For some reason, it's not had this problem before, but...
Layla, can you confirm Liam's a presenter, please?
Here we go. Right. Yep. Apologies for that, members. Yeah.
No problem.
I need to be a presenter before I can present. So here we go. Right. So this application is an application to vary a condition on a previous planning consent for the Aldi superstore within the centre of Bridgewater. The application site is outlined in red, so members will be familiar with this. This is the council building here. This is the job centre here. The council building is just out of shot down here, and this is the Northgate site, which is currently under construction for a supermarket. Again, this is an aerial view of the site before work was underway. And this is the approved plan from the 2018 consent. Again, members may be familiar with this. So the application is seeking to vary condition 23 of that consent, which is related to the delivery times. The application for planning permission granted consent subject to deliveries being restricted to the hours of between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. This application is seeking to extend those delivery times by an hour, both in the morning and in the evening. So the revised condition would read allowing deliveries between 6 a.m. and midnight. In terms of context, the application site is as was approved at the time. The application itself, in terms of plans, as you can see the elevations on the screen at the moment, these were approved at the time of the application being submitted, and this was a reserve matters scheme which was part of the wider outline consent for the Northgate development. We go back to the site plan. So in terms of the layout, we have the primary access to the superstore coming off of Northgate here, with the existing public car park located to the south of this football pitch here. The Audi car parking spaces are located within this area and along this boundary here. And the delivery area and the delivery entrance is located here on the side of the building, which is enclosed by, which will be enclosed by timber fencing and is also enclosed by the building itself. In terms of distances, the entrance itself is 50 metres away from Anson Way here, but also located on the other side of the building here, with Chalice Mews, the other closest property to the south, located approximately 70 metres away from the entrance into the warehousing area. The application is seeking to vary the condition regarding delivery times and allowing a larger window for deliveries to be made to the superstore. However, there have been a number of objections to the application from the Town Council and local residents. We have also received an additional 24 letters since the time of the report being written, which raise similar issues in respect of those already listed within the report, including impact from noise and light pollution. The application has been supported by a noise assessment, an updated noise assessment, which provides ambient noise levels recorded within the area at the times of which the extension is proposed. However, the proposed noise levels have been provided on a predicted basis, and this was highlighted by the environmental health team. And it unfortunately doesn't provide at this stage specific noise levels relative to the site itself and the delivery of goods to the store. So on this basis, this is due to the fact that the store itself has not been completed yet and is not currently operational, which is expected to be later this year. So in this respect, it is considered on the basis of the concerns raised by the environmental health team and taking into account the objections received, that a temporary condition is imposed for a 6-month trial to allow the store to use this extended period for deliveries to record the noise within that time period and allow this to be provided in provide the evidence and allow it to be used in conjunction with any future application that may be sought to make this a permanent arrangement. It is considered, therefore, on the basis of a temporary 6-month period that the application can potentially take into account the impact on residential amenity through noise and disturbance. One additional update to the report, members, is the actual variation of the condition 23. As you'll see within the report, the first paragraph of the condition sets out the revised timeframes. It appears that we've missed one of those in terms of the 6 a.m. start point. So the condition 23 of condition 23 of the consent should read from 12 p.m. to 6 a.m. in all respect of activities taking place, including the goods, pallets and cages shall not be moved in the open areas with any service yard between the hours of 12 p.m. and 6 a.m. rather than the 7 a.m. that's listed in the report. So on that basis, Chairman, and on the basis of it being a temporary consent, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll see we have a number of speakers on this application. So if we start with Councillor Smedley. Councillor Smedley, if I can just confirm your microphone is turned on.
My microphone is on.
Terrific, thank you very much. And you're speaking today on behalf of the Town Council?
That's correct.
Excellent. So start when you're ready, and you've got the 3 minutes, and you'll hear the bell when you've got a minute to go.
So thank you very much. I'm speaking on behalf of the Bridgewater Town Council and as a Westover Ward Councillor, and objecting to the variation of condition 23 of the planning permission to allow deliveries between 6 AM and midnight to the new Aldi store on Northgate. This is actually 2 hours, not an hour extended a day, and that's 14 a week. Bridgewater Town Council and Westover councillors have supported this important development on Northgate, and we appreciate that the inclusion of Aldi is a key element to make the rest of the project happen. But it needs to be responsive to the concerns of the neighbours, like any good project. And in simple terms, when the planning permission was originally granted, the terms that the neighbours accepted were simply no deliveries between 11 PM and 7 AM. And the reason given was to safeguard local residents from noise and disturbance, in accordance with your policies D16 and D26. The original permission was granted based on this. However, these proposed changes add 2 hours onto the original agreement, and this would happen 7 days a week. Town council has objected now because of the noise pollution to many residents who live very close to this, and these people who have until now supported this project will only have some 6 hours a day without the interruption of HGV and other vehicles delivering goods. So there's no need to damage that fragile coalition of residents prepared to support this project by adding in any creeping adjustments which are not necessary to the operation of the store, but rather upholding the original conditions as seen as important to the residents. And the residents of the Town Council believe the original times were reasonable and that Aldi began construction with a full knowledge of these conditions, so it's not seen as particularly honourable to attempt to insert these changes at a later stage. Residents are putting up with a lot of disruption during the construction phase and will be asked to put up with more during the remainder of the Northgate project, both during construction and subsequent operation. So it's very important that they're dealt a fair hand at an early stage, because they'll not simply roll over and acquiesce to any new changes and demands. Quite the opposite, their resistance will grow and their resolve will stiffen. So the defence for this change is that the variation wouldn't affect the amenity of these residents residing nearby, but clearly it would, by 2 hours a day and 7 days a week. Residents also don't want any temporary 6-month trial period to assess the impact. They want you to honour the original terms of the planning decision. I ask you please to do that today.
Thank you very much. The second speaker we have is Philip Marsden. So Mrs. Nicholson, if I could ask you to enable the speaker's microphone, and Mr. Marsden, if you could confirm that it's working.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you very much. So again, just to remind you, you've got the 3 minutes. You'll hear the bell go when there's 1 minute to go, and start when you're ready, please.
Okay, thank you for allowing me the time to speak in support of this application. My name is Phil Marsden and I am the planning agent for Aldi Stores Limited. The application seeks permission to amend condition 3 of the decision notice, which granted the new Aldi store. The amended condition will enable the store to receive deliveries between 6 AM and midnight, 7 days a week. This is only a 2 hour per day extension above what is currently permitted. The extension is required to enable the logistics team to efficiently plan delivery routes for stores in the region, which has consequential sustainability benefits. It doesn't necessarily mean that a delivery lorry will arrive at the site at 6 AM every morning. It simply allows flexibility for the store to fit in with wider delivery patterns. The relaxation will also enable the logistics team to avoid servicing the store during the morning and afternoon periods when the adjacent Northgate Primary School is busy with parents and guardians dropping off and picking up children. A robust noise impact assessment was submitted with the application, which confirms that at the nearest residential properties, the increase in noise levels during the additional 2 hours would be no more than 0.3 decibels, which is negligible. It is an accepted principle among acousticians that increases of less than 3 decibels are considered imperceptible. And according to the World Health Organization guidelines, the impacts of this proposal would be low. Additionally, Aldi is committed to being a good neighbour and will ensure deliveries take place as quietly as possible with engines turned off whilst lorries are stationary. It will also ensure only one service vehicle is on site at any one time. Aldi also holds all its stock on pallets which are directly unloaded off the lorries with hand trucks. It does not use cages to hold stock, unlike other supermarkets which produce much higher noise levels when being manoeuvred. The Council's environmental health team has confirmed it has no objection to the application, subject to the variation being restricted to a 6-month temporary period. The application will be compliant with policies D15 and D25 of the local plan, and so I respectfully request that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any comments or questions, please? Councillor Hendry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This application is not isolated. We had a similar thing last year with Aldi, I think, in Highbridge, because it was next to Travelodge. One of the things you have to be fair about here is that they have a job to do like everybody else. The residential homes, which they're having to serve in a wide area around them, they have to have access to goods in the morning, so these goods have to be transported in. The residential properties close to it are not actually that close to be disturbed at all in any way. So given they're allowed a 6-month trial, I think that's actually been more than fair, not causing anybody any kind of headache or problem. And if after the 6 months it was causing a huge problem, it can be looked at again. But how it stands at the moment with a 6-month trial, I think it's absolutely fine, Mr. Chairman. I don't see a problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I've got Councillors Pearce and then Revens. So Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Just going back on page 3 to the original consents and the reasons that the original hours were consented, and that was to safeguard local residents from noise and disturbance. And I really don't understand what has changed since then, other than Aldi's logistic need, as the agent has stated, to have that additional 2 hours per day for their deliveries, when they already have significant hours per day to make those deliveries. The fact there have been 38 responses, which is quite significant, I think, and demonstrates that there are properties, homes close by. But can I ask a question? You've got slide 4 up at the moment. Can you explain to me the movement of lorries around the site, please, for the deliveries? Because I'm not quite sure how the movement works around the store, or whether lorries will be having to reverse in and out of the loading bay.
Okay, Mr. Evans.
Yes, so the site plan in front of you at the moment shows the access into the site. So the entrance is here. So you can see there's a right-hand turn lane here, which will allow vehicles from the clink to come in, take a right-hand turn, and access the site through here. You can probably just about make out there's an image of a lorry there, which indicates that there will be reversing back into the bay here, and then access thereafter will come straight out onto Northgate again. So there will be a requirement to reverse within the site for lorries to back into the delivery entrance, and then obviously exit to the site in forward gear out onto Northgate again.
Councillor Pearce.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. The fact that lorries are needing to reverse, and with the beeping that happens with the reversing mechanism, is an additional concern. I really wish stores would be, at the time of original applications, would be upfront about the hours that they need, because it seems to be a sort of a creeping encroachment that is a regular strategy, and I don't think that's helpful. That's all for now. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Evans.
Yes, well, within the report, the applicants have set out what they would expect from their delivery drivers in terms of when they're manoeuvring within the site. As the agent has spoken about, they don't use cages, and the applicants have set out what will be expected of their drivers when they are entering the site and making their deliveries. That's set out within the report within the main issues section. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Evans, could I just also confirm, in terms of the reversing alarms, are they covered by condition 23?
Yes, they are. Yes. So the condition 23 set out within the report states that there, if we go through to it, so in effect it said there shall be no deliveries to and from the site between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. In addition, reversing alarms should not be used between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. Any compactor shall not be used between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. Goods pallets or cages shall not be moved in the open areas with any service yard between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. as proposed to be amended.
Councillor, Mrs. De Vries, did you want to comment?
Yes, sorry, it was just to make a point in terms of the reversing. Obviously, Liam set out the route that a lorry would be going into the site. There is a short distance it would reverse for, but at the point it's in the delivery entrance, I don't know if, Liam, you can get the elevations up again. The delivery entrance sort of door is elevated from the ground level because that allows the lorries to reverse in and then effectively unload goods directly into the building. So if you entered the site in a forward gear, you wouldn't have the same direct connectivity with the building as what you do when you reverse. So whilst there is a limited period of reversing to get the lorry in place, once it's in place, the actual noise impact of unloading it is significantly less because it decants straight into the building. In terms of approach, the application was supported with a noise assessment that does set out that there would be very, very minimal impact on the neighbours. Our concern with this as a local authority is that the levels that have been presented are predicted because the building isn't currently operational. What they have done is they've done a survey of what the ambient noise levels are at those properties at the moment during those hours. And consistent with the high bridge approach, we did limit consent for a temporary 6-month period to allow information to be gathered. So then if they do want to come back in for a further extension permanently to the period, then it's based on evidence of actual impact rather than predicted impact. But the predicted impact is very low.
Thank you. So we've got a number of councillors now, Councillor Revens, Bradford and Perry. So Councillor Revens, if you could start.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask the same question as Councillor Pearce about what has changed. From Mr. Marsden's explanation, I didn't really pick up what has changed from the point from when they made the original application to now, and I don't think Mr. Evans answered that point. So I wonder whether I could put that one forward again, please.
Yeah, Mr. Evans. I think, Mr. Evans, you might be on mute.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, with you a second. Okay, so bear with me a second, Chairman. Right, okay, so just waiting for the computer to kick back into life.
That's fine.
Right. Okay. So it's really re-emphasising what the agent was saying during their presentation. Since the Aldi store is within the sort of a competitive marketplace, and they're looking to make the shopping experience as efficient as possible. So they're looking to increase the stock intake at times when the store is at its quietest. So in terms of actual change, in terms of what we have on site, there isn't really any change in respect to the surrounding areas, but it would allow, as the agent has said, greater flexibility in how the store operates in terms of meeting customer demand, and they feel that adding the extra hour in the morning and the extra hour in the evening would allow them to do that. I'm not sure I can add much more to that. I'm not sure if Dawn wants to maybe say something on that, but at the moment that's what I would be able to come back with.
Okay, Mrs. De Vries.
Thank you. I think in terms of logistics, obviously it's worth considering that this is quite a major supermarket industry. They have a number of stores all around the area, and in terms of delivery to those stores, that generally works on a timetable as the agent set out. if the window of opportunity to get deliveries to different stores is larger, then it will be easier to sort of have routes that free flow and avoid sort of peak traffic and minimize sort of time loss and cost in terms of actually getting the products to the supermarkets efficiently. In terms of, for us, considering it as a planning application, the question isn't necessarily what's changed for the developer. The question for us is, what does it change in terms of the surrounding residents? What is the impact? What is the harm of the change they're proposing? In terms of currently under COVID, all rules are relaxed in terms of deliveries to supermarkets because it was noted as part of COVID that it's important to get food to supermarkets to be able to feed the country. They're not, they could implement these hours under COVID if the store was currently up and operational, but they're looking for a permanent variation. But what we have to assess is what the impact of increasing the hours is, rather than what's changed for the applicant. If there is an impact, then we're within our rights to refuse the application. If there isn't an impact, and given that we can't confirm that there would be based on the fact that the supermarket isn't operational, we're almost aiming for the middle ground to consent it for a temporary period to allow us to gather the information to confirm if there is an impact. And if there is, then it would be at point of resubmission that we would be reconsidering it in front of members.
Thank you, Councillor Evans.
Yeah, I am still struggling with this what's changed question, because I cannot understand what has changed since the original application went in and what we did. The logistics are the same, and I can't see why it is that this needs to be changed when the original planning application, they've been straightforward at the start about what times they needed. Then that's fine. If they had come to us with a reason of something had changed and made it more logistically easier to do this, I could understand it. But at the moment, I can see this will only cause inconvenience to neighbouring properties. This was not what they were presented with originally. I also struggle with the description of the hour between 11 and midnight as the evening. I think it is quite blatantly the night. It's certainly past my bedtime.
Thank you. I guess in terms of any discussion we have on this, it will be, as Mrs. De Vries said, we've got to assess the impact that those changes would have. I understand the concern about why it's changed, but as a planning authority, we've got to deal with it because that's what the applicants have asked for, and we can just assess it on whether it has that impact or not. But Councillor Ribbon.
But when the original application went in, we assessed it on that basis, and those were the conditions that were put in. And if those conditions are to change, there needs to be a reason for change. Those conditions were put in because there would be harm to the residents outside the original hours.
Again, I'll come back to Mrs. De Vries, but just to confirm, in terms of the original application, I presume the hours that were agreed was the hours that were applied for at that time, and they're applying for different hours this time. But Mrs. De Vries?
On the original application, as part of the application form, there is a section where they fill in the hours that they anticipate that they would be running through. So the conditions of sort of 7 to 11 are fairly standard delivery hour conditions. They're not considered on face value to cause any impact in terms of amenity. 6 is obviously an hour earlier, midnight is an hour later. They're less acceptable on face value than 7 till 11, which is why they're subject to the application and the assessment. The original assessment didn't say outside of these hours there is a detrimental impact. The original assessment said these are the hours we're applying for and this is why it's acceptable within these hours. So what we're now looking at is what the impact is by increasing the deliveries by an hour either end, and if there's any harm as a result of that.
Thank you. I've now got Councillors Bradford, Perry and Hendry. So Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally respect the views of the local councillors who are handling the concerns of their residents very, very passionately. But I have to agree with Councillor Hendry. This is only for a period of 6 months. And what's changed since the original application come in? I'll tell you what's changed. We've had COVID. And anybody in business would know that nothing is really black and white regarding any of this, what you're dealing with. Nothing. And rest assured, I do know what I'm talking about. Right? What you decide Monday, by the time you get to Friday, it might have all changed. But everybody's trying to adapt to to a difficult situation we all find ourselves in. And I must admit that some of these vehicles and forklifts, when they're unloading, there's bleep, 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 bleep that gets on people's nerves. But according to Liam, this won't be on this particular site because they're going to do it with fork handless, sounds like it, forklifts stripped up by hand. So you won't get this same problem. So really, I can't see a lot of trouble for 6 months, to be honest. And if it is a major issue, I feel sure everybody will be coming back, because at the end of the day, we all got to get on in this world, because it is a changing world. I understand Aldi's going for quite a lot of supermarkets in Somerset in the next 12 months. Seems like this was a growing thing, and we have to get it right, and I'm sure we will. So I'm going to move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and just to confirm, that's with the amended condition as outlined by Mr. Evans with the change of time because of the typo.
That's correct. That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Perry.
Yeah, thank you. I think all my questions have been answered, actually. Thank you very much. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you for that. Councillor Hendry.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. The few things there, opening times or closing times or having lorries come in and drop off, it's not a one-size-fits-all. In Bridgewater, you've got Morrison's, you've got Asda's, I'm not quite sure what else, but you have to be fair. It's got to be a fair playing field for all here. What they're asking for just now is not unreasonable. It's just not, it's actually okay. Secondly, the applicant, I think it was the applicant when he spoke at the first time, he mentioned policy D25. D25 actually covers, let me see now, visual dominance, loss of light, overlooking. So I'm not quite sure why somebody mentioned policy D25. It's not valid here at all. All that said, I'm quite happy to second the motion, Mr. Chairman, because I think this is perfectly valid. Don't see a problem at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. In relation to Councillor Hendry, and I'm sure it's for planning officers to make this point as well, but my understanding was policy 25 relates to protecting residential amenity to unacceptable noise disturbance, odours, fumes and vibration. My concern is with extending these hours. I mean, the residents were already facing 16 hours per day, every day, potentially, of lorry movements, that policy D25 does indeed apply here.
Mr. Evans or Mrs. De Vries? Do you want Mrs. De Vries?
Thank you. In terms of the relevant policies to look at impact on neighbouring amenity, D25 is the standard one in terms of protecting residential amenity, and it does cover noise or disturbance, so it would be relevant for a consideration in terms of what the impact is and what the level of harm is. Also, policy D24, which is pollution impacts of development, which also looks at noise pollution and or vibration. So it's those two policies that we look at if we're assessing what the impact is. I think just in addition, very quickly, in terms of the extension of the hours, obviously it does allow deliveries between 6 and midnight, but it's not constant deliveries every minute of those hours for that duration. It'll be however many deliveries for that store between that period. So it wouldn't be the constant, relentless hum or buzz if you had sort of allowed sort of operating use sort of between those hours. It's a delivery vehicle turning up between those hours and staggered throughout that time frame in terms of impacts, but I'll leave it to members to continue to debate.
Thank you. I've got Councillors Bradford and then Kingham. Councillor Bradford.
I'm getting used to this mute and unmute. Mr. Chairman, I just say we've got Tesco at North Petherton, and that's a very small site really for big lorries going in and out, etc., etc. And the times are very flexible. They weren't supposed to be, but they are. They have to be to cope with situations and circumstances, traffic movement and everything else, and the state of everything around. You know, it's just one of them situations. And I suggest the fact there's more and more supermarkets coming within the area. There ain't going to be so many movements anyhow. I would have thought supermarket lorries. You know, it's going to be a competitive industry. It really, really is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm listening to the whole debate. I mean, my experience of these types of supermarket, normally they only have 2 deliveries a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. So I'm not really sure you're going to have lorries in and out all day long with beeping, reversing lights. And I think we have to go with a recommendation and give it the 6 months trial. As it's said before, if we're not happy with it, they can come back and we can discuss it again. So I don't have a problem with the recommendation at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's a couple of interesting points that have been raised. I just want to check, first of all, my understanding that during COVID, there aren't any restrictions on delivery times. So saying COVID has changed all this, I think, is actually slightly misleading. The second point question I would like to ask is about the delivery times for the other supermarkets, the competitor supermarkets, because that issue of competition has been raised. Are we setting a precedent that Sainsbury's and Morrison's and so on, the other supermarkets around Bridgewater, could also apply for similar extensions to their times, and we end up with multiplying this problem across the district? Thank you.
Mrs. De Vries, do you want to address that, please?
Thank you. In terms of COVID, if there are restrictions on consents, it doesn't remove the restriction, but we are not enforcing it at the moment, and we're encouraged by government to not enforce at the moment. So there is a greater flexibility currently under the COVID things for deliveries out of the standard hours, which was to address the shortfall of supply and demand that was experienced when we first went into lockdown. In terms of the second question, timeframes for other supermarkets within the area, I think Asda's has got 6 till 11, so it currently already has the 6 to 7 hours. It doesn't have the 11 to midnight hour. The one that members dealt with in Highbridge last year has got unrestricted deliveries, so there's no time frame for that one. And that again was similar to this approach. It implemented a 6-month temporary period to establish what the actual impact was, and then an informed opinion was made following the 6 months temporary period, which is what we're proposing for this one.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I haven't got a problem supporting this because it is just for a 6-month temporary period. It was interesting, the officers just said that one supermarket said that their hours of opening is between 11 and 6. And I would have thought this would have been a better application for this site, but as it is at the moment, it's midnight until 6 a.m. It was also mentioned that there's a school right next door, so I can imagine sort of deliveries early in the morning would be beneficial, with the school, because the reasons given, kids coming in and out. So I would actually support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other comments within the chat at the moment, so we have had a resolution that's been moved and seconded, which is to grant permission with the updated amended condition. So I'm going to come to members for their votes and for them to confirm that they have been present during the debate and presentation. So if we start with Councillor Granter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can confirm that I've heard the whole debate, and on this occasion I'm against the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've heard the whole presentation. I am for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I'm against the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole of the debate, and I'm for the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I've seen and heard everything. I'm very much for the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Facey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've been present through the presentation, Chairman, and I would like to abstain my vote, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've seen and heard the presentation and the debate, and I am against the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've been present and heard the whole debate, and I am for the officer's recommendation of 6 months trial.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
I have heard the whole debate, Mr. Chairman. I'm supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
I'm present throughout the whole application and debate, and I'm against.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, I was present through the whole presentation and I'm against. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard the whole presentation and I'm for. Thank you.
Thank you. And likewise, I've been present throughout the whole presentation and I am also for the recommendation for granting permission. If I could just confirm with Ms Nicholson, that's all members who are present have voted. Sorry, Mr Nicholson, couldn't hear you.
Yes. Sorry, I moved my microphone out of the way. Bear with me 1 minute. Let me just finish counting up.
Thank you.
Okay, that is 7 in support of the recommendation, 5 against and 1 abstention.
Yeah, I make that as well. And Mrs Lehman, if you can just confirm 7, 5 and 1.
I can confirm that, Chairman. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So in that case, the permission is granted. Thank you very much. So members, if you can move to our next application, which is on page 16, and to Breen and Ms Elvey, if you'd like to present this application, please.
Hello, thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's not letting me present. I don't know if the same thing is happening.
If you bear with us 1 minute, we'll just check that you're on the list of.
Okay.
Apologies, I'll just check it again.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to try again?
Okay.
Apologies.
That's okay. Okay, can everyone see?
Not yet. If you bear with me, I'll tell you when it comes.
Okay.
Yep, we've now got the cover screen.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, good morning, everyone. So this is an application at Crackers Bar in Breen for the erection of a first floor extension, formation of an atrium with stairs to proposed first floor on site of existing conservatory to be demolished to front elevation, formation of a terrace balcony area with balustrade fencing to front elevation. Now, since the publication of my report, I do have an update. So following clarification of the definition of GFA within the parking strategy, it is confirmed that actually an additional 13 parking spaces would be required as a result of this development. And therefore, along with the other considerations, the application does not comply with policy D14, contrary to what I've stated in my report. So here is a list of the relevant policies that we need to consider for this and the main considerations. So visual amenity, residential amenity, highway safety, the tourism boundary, and any historic assets. So circled in yellow here is the application site. It lies within the well-established tourist area of Breen. Crackers Bar is sited to the east of South Road. So the proposal seeks consent for the erection of a first floor extension to the green area, creation of a garden area for the existing maisonette to the orange area, and a flat roof titled Emergency Exit Route flat roof area to the purple space. So this slide shows the existing and proposed floor plans. I have coloured the proposed first floor plan to match the previous diagram. The existing flat roof area to the side will be built upon and it will be extended approximately 0.3 metres further forward than the existing conservatory to the front, therefore projecting approximately 4.6 metres from the existing front elevation of the main building and will measure approximately 6 metres in height. The existing unauthorised balcony area, as shown, will be converted to a garden area for the existing maisonette and an emergency exit route flat roof area. The two external areas will be separated by a 1 metre high fence. The plans do not show how the garden area is accessed. The only external doors are the double doors that lead to the purple flat roof area from the green function room area. So this slide shows the existing and proposed elevations. Top left is the rear elevation, and as you move clockwise you can see the side from the south, the side from the north, and the front elevation. The proposed first floor extension will be finished with a flat roof. The walls will be finished with cladding panels and the roof will be finished with a metal ribbed flat roof. The elevations also show the flat roof area without balustrading. This is not a drawing error, as the supporting documents submitted for the application also refer to the lack of balustrading. It should be noted, however, that whilst this is not an error, there are many inaccuracies with the plans. For example, the existing elevations do not show the correct windows and doors or the correct positions of the fenestration, and the correct dimensions of certain features, such as the decorative gables to the front elevation, are also incorrect. So we move on to my photographs from my site visit. So this is a view of the property from the northwest. The brown building next door to the left is holiday accommodation. So the white conservatory that you can see is where the front roof extension will project to. So here are some wider street views of the property. So the top photo shows the property as viewed from the south, with the photo at the bottom as you view from the north. So this is another view of the front of the property from the southwest. The decorative gables are to remain, with the first floor flat roof extension being built where the arrow is indicating. The wooden fence is the existing unauthorised balcony area that will partly become the garden area for the maisonette and the emergency access route area. So this is a view of the property from the rear, where you can see the neighbouring property. The proposal will be constructed where the arrow is indicating and will finish approximately where the brown plastic storage building is. So the officer recommendation is to refuse planning permission. The proposal would have a detrimental impact on the visual amenity of the locality due to the dominant and overbearing design. The proposal is also unsafe due to the lack of balustrading to the flat roof area. Furthermore, the proposal would have a detrimental impact to the residential amenity of occupiers of the existing maisonette and neighbouring property. The 1 metre high fence is inadequate to prevent overlooking or to prevent access to the unsafe flat roof area. Means of access to the garden area is also unacceptable. Additionally, the proximity of the development to the boundary line would result in over-dominance to the neighbour. The development would result in an increase of floor space that would require an additional 13 parking spaces. The only parking area is the existing space to the rear, as you could see in the photographs, which is used for staff and company visitors. The proposal complies with policy in relation to the tourism boundary and historic assets. However, due to the previous points raised, the recommendation is to refuse consent.
Thank you very much. Members, as you'll see, we have a speaker on this application, Mark Warren. So, Mr. Nicholson, if you could enable the speaker's microphone. Mr. Warren, if you could just confirm that the microphone is working.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So, just to remind you, you've got the 3 minutes to address the committee. You'll hear the bell when there's a minute of that time left to go. So, start when you're ready, please.
Fine. Good morning. I'm Mark Warren, representing the applicant. There are a few areas in the case officer's report. The rear fire escape is actually over the existing roof, and there's not an extension to the rear. And also, the case officer has confused the holiday let accommodation with the manager's accommodation. In these extreme times, I believe the parish council is right and the case officer is wrong to have an entrepreneur prepared to invest in his facilities and provide additional facilities in a holiday centre is good for the area and the economy. Sedgemoor has stated they're looking to improve the choice of destinations available to visitors in the area. Crackers is a successful bar, but it's reached capacity, and some of the clientele have expressed interest in having a more upmarket area away from the popular karaoke. From reading the case officer's report, the key areas are: 1, the impact on the residential amenity of the occupants of the maisonettes; The two holiday lets are to the rear of the property. The maisonette is the maisonette the case officer is referring to is the manager's accommodation. This is tied to the business, and therefore the points raised by the case officer are not applicable. There is also access via French doors, and elevations were provided to the planning officer. Following on from the meeting with planners in Bridgewater, a flat roof was considered the better solution, as a pitched roof would increase the ridge height and caused more shadowing. Breen is a holiday destination, and the adjacent properties to the south are almost industrial in their scale. In balancing appearance and financial viability, it was felt that the best design was a compromise between the two, and once built, it is unlikely to cause comments to be made. We did look at some form of curved roof, but were advised by structural engineers to consider the effect of winter winds, and a metal flat roof was deemed the best solution. In conclusion, I would ask that, given the support of the Parish Council, you support this application.
Thank you very much. Ms. Elvey, was there anything you wanted to say before I come to members?
Just that I don't think there has been a confusion about the where the maisonette and the staff accommodation is. As you can see on the floor plan here, the holiday lets are to the rear, and this is the staff accommodation, or as it's sometimes referred to, the maisonette, and this is the garden area, which is to serve that accommodation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Grimes first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Breen is a tourism area, and it's a very busy area, completely all up and down that strip. But I'm afraid in this case, I believe that the officer is right, and I totally agree with where she's coming from on disturbance, noise, overbearing, size and scale. And I just find this unacceptable in the present state that what it is. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Bradford, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel by looking at the pictures, I can't make a decision on that planning application, right? I really can't. It's one of them you really got to go and look at to visualise exactly what's going on. All he can rely on is local knowledge, which is very, very important, I think. So when it comes to the vote, for that reason, I'm not confident saying anything about it, because I find it hard to visualise exactly what is there, how it implicates everything else and everything else. So I could probably, when it came to the vote, I would probably abstain anyhow. For that reason only.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kingham.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think looking at the relevant history of this area, I mean, to say there's been rather a large number of planning applications which have been granted. Presumably they've all been carried out. But this particular one, I don't really see it's going to do any justice to that area. And again, looking at the drawings, it doesn't give me any confidence what has been proposed would be suitable. And at the moment, I can't say I support the application.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from members? If not, I will be looking for a recommendation, please, from Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just confirm whether the recommendation has been amended to incorporate the highways concerns that were raised by as well, because they're not on the paperwork?
I will update it. Yeah, I will update it.
So just to confirm, your recommendation is for 3 reasons.
Yes.
For refusal, and the third reason being the lack of additional parking.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to move the officer's recommendation with the 3 for the 3 reasons that were given.
Thank you very much. I've then got Councillors Grimes and Kingham. Councillor Grimes.
Yes, Chairman, totally agree with the conditions. Second the recommendation. Thank you.
So again, just to confirm, that's with the additional reason.
Yes, it certainly is. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was just going to second the proposal with those conditions.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing anyone else at the moment indicating a desire to speak. So we will come to taking a vote on the proposal that's been moved and seconded, which is refusal with the additional reason. If we start this time, let's go with Councillor Evans. Should we start with you?
First time for everything starting with me. Yes, I've heard and seen the debate, and I'm in favour of the proposal to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, well, I always follow Councillor Evans, so that's nothing unusual. I've heard and seen all the application, and I'm with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chairman. I've heard everything, seen everything, but I'm going to abstain for the reason I can't make a decision looking at those pictures. I honestly can't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bolt.
Thank you. Present throughout the whole application and debate, and I'm for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, thank you. I was present through all the presentation, and I am for the officer's recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm for the officer's recommendation. I've seen and heard the whole debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Granter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard all of the debate, and I'm for the officer's recommendation for refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard the presentation. I am for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I am for the officer's recommendation to refuse.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I'm for the officer's recommendation to refuse.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
I didn't see the whole. I didn't hear and see everything, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, my Wi-Fi went down momentarily, so I have to abstain. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll put you down as absent from that vote.
Thank you.
Councillor Facey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was present throughout the debate, Chairman. And I think, definitely I'm going to support the officer on refusal, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And finally, myself, I've also heard and seen the whole debate, and I'm also for the recommendation for refusal. So, Mr. Nicholson, if you could just confirm that's all members present and what the voting is, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got 11 in support of the officer recommendation, 1 abstention and 1 absent.
Yep, that's why I make it. And again, Mrs. Lehman, could you just confirm that you're happy it's 11, 0, 1 and 1?
Yes, I can confirm that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So in that case, the application is refused. Members, I'm going to suggest at this point we take a short comfort break if you're happy for that, and we'll restart at 1:45. That'll be 5 minutes time. So at 10:45 we'll restart. Thank you.
With larger sites, they often go to hearings or public inquiries. Hearings are sometimes delayed because you have to arrange a meeting that everyone can attend. It usually takes a couple of days. Public inquiries take much longer because the venue you need is much bigger and you need to coordinate for a longer period of time. This one has been submitted under written reps. The deadline for submission of our paper response is today, so we'll be emailing off our confirmation that we're not looking to defend the appeal today, and we should have an update shortly after that in terms of sort of timeframes for progression, but they are a little bit backlogged, if you like, because of the COVID situation, where the planning inspectorate has switched from a predominantly paper-based process to now much more electronic. But so we don't have a date as yet, but the fact they're going written reps means that we should get a quicker outcome.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other questions on that section, so if you'd like to move to 7.2, appeals decided.
Okay, so again, this is decided between the 7th of May and the 23rd of June. A lot of these are delegated decisions. So we had 2 semi-detached dwellings. We refused planning permission and it was dismissed under the written reps procedure. And again, another delegated one, demolition of a garage and erection of 13 dwellings, which was refused, undertaken through the written reps and was dismissed. That was at Four Forks House, Charlinch and Spaxton. They also applied for costs because they thought we were unreasonable, but the inspector sided on us in the end.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members on those? I'm not seeing anything at the moment, so I think we can move to 7.3.
So this is lawful certificates where they've sought to demonstrate existing uses. So with change of use to residential, they have to prove that they've been occupying it unlawfully for a length of time. We've had 2 certificate of lawfulness be approved. One was the building at Ashwood Farm in Shipham Road in Cheddar, and the second being Vintage MG Restorations in Bristol Road, Bidisham Axbridge.
Again, any comments or questions from members? I'm not seeing any, so I think we can move to 7.4.
And this is Section 106 agreements that have been issued since the 7th of May to the 23rd of June. So we had land at Round Oak Farm, Axbridge and Cheddar, which was outline permission for 96 dwellings. Stafflands Farm, which was a variation of the approved plans application for the 43 dwellings in North Petherton. Cannington Court, which was change of use of a from C2 use to sui generis, was granted. And land to the east of Taunton Road, adjacent Portman Drive, so that was the outline application for 130, which is the back part of the MP1 allocation that was before members.
Again, members, any comments or questions on those? No, I'm not seeing anything there, so we'll move on then to agenda item 8.
Right, agenda item 8 is the update on legal agreements. I was going to pass over to Dawn Lehman to run through this one.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lehman. If you'd like to take us through this report.
Thank you, Chairman. Bower Farm was completed on the 1st of May 2020. This was an outsourced agreement. Stafflands Farm, which was in-house, that was completed on the 24th of March 2020.
Mrs. Lehman, I think you might have just skipped a couple. There was, after Bower on our list, it's then Round Oak, which was just mentioned by the other Dawn.
Apologies. Yes, I did skip it. Round Oak Farm, that was in-house. That was completed on the 13th of May 2020. Stafflands Farm in-house, that was completed on the 24th of March 2020. In-house land to the northwest of Wilstock Farm, that was a deed of variation, that was completed on the 12th of December 2019. There's an error on that report.
Again, sorry, Mrs. Lehman, we've got one that's skipped. After Stafflands, we've got land at West Road, Limpsham.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at my own screen, but I look on the presentation that Dawn DeFries is putting up, so it's probably easier. Land at West Road, Limpsham, that was in-house, and that was completed on the 20th of December 2019. Land to the northwest of Wilstock Farm, there's a slight error on the report, that was completed on the 12th of December 2019. That was a deed of variation. Land at Howell Lane, that was in-house, that was completed on the 2nd of March. Then land at East of Taunton Road, adjacent to, if we can go up one, please.
Down, that one. North
Adjacent to North Petherton Rugby Club, yes. That one is ongoing with negotiations. We're almost completed on that one. It's just a matter of negotiating the schedule relating to the connectivity roads and access to ongoing future development. Land at Brew Farm, again, we've had discussions to move the agreement forward. We're still waiting for the other party solicitor to come forward with the amends to the draft that was circulated some time ago. I'm sorry, I don't have the date. Land to east of Owlport, Highbridge. Title was confirmed on that one.
Again, Dawn, I'm sorry, we might have skipped one there. There was Hayne Walk, Chiltern Polden.
I'm very sorry. Hayne Walk, Chiltern Polden. There were some ongoing discussions. There's some ongoing discussions with the lead local flood authority. That has been confirmed that that is no longer an issue. In terms of completing the section 106, there was one outstanding drafting point that I addressed yesterday. So the matter now is firmly within the other party solicitor's court. So hopefully we should be able to approve that document and then go on to engrossments and execution. So that would be almost near to finishing. So I've gone through east of Owlport Lane. And land at south of Holgate Way, title confirmed, undertaking for costs, internal draft circulated for instructions for affordable housing and public open space. I can't go into any further detail on this one because this actually, this actual Section 106 agreement has been outsourced.
Okay, if I could ask you to hold for 1 minute, I've got Councillor Kingham who's coming with a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah. Dawn, Hayne Walk, what sort of time scale are you looking at now to get that complete? Because obviously I get quite a bit of pressure from the local parish council on that one. Don't know what is actually happening.
It's only a matter of approval. It was a very, very minor amendment that I put in yesterday, which should not be contentious. So I would just really be waiting for the other party solicitor to come back to me to say the draft has been approved. Once it's approved, we will then engross, and then it will get circulated to all the parties for execution. So I would sort of guess, if I can't give you, I could give you an approximate guess in terms of execution and coming back for sealing with the council. I would say could take between 2 to 3 weeks. In terms of the other side solicitor coming back to me, I would hope to see something either the end of this week or next week. So all in all, I would think possibly, I know it sounds a long time, but circulating for signatures, and because of the COVID situation, there could be an issue there unless we complete electronically, which we can also do, which has been accepted by the land registry. So depending on how we execute, I still think we're probably about 3 to 4 weeks away from completing the agreement, Councillor Kingham.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just let's give them some idea of what sort of timescale it is. Yeah, thank you, Dawn.
Okay.
Excellent. And then back to, I think it's Old Tollworked.
Yes, again, I've agreed the UU with the other party solicitor. They will, this is a legal technical issue, they will be completed in part. So we're going to just agree the completion in part clause, which will have to go in, and then it will be signed and dated. And as soon as I've received the signed and dated, hopefully it will be a wet ink signature and address and sent to the council. As soon as that's received, if I'm happy that it's been executed correctly, then I will be able to confirm the issuing of consent. So we're probably possibly a week or 2 weeks away from completion on that one.
Thank you. And the last one we've got is Lakeside.
Lakeside, and with Lakeside, I have spoken to the other party solicitor yesterday. The only outstanding issues I can see, and is the schedule relating to the closure and closure of the railway crossing and the diversion of the footpath. Once we've got that schedule in, I think we're almost agreed. I know we're going to also, I was going to also mention the land disposal, as you know, members. The land disposal is not an issue for the planning committee. It comes under a separate statutory code. That one was agreed at executive on the 24th of June. It's been called in by scrutiny and will be heard on the 13th of July. So if scrutiny uphold the recommendation, then the land sale will go ahead. If they do not uphold the recommendation and provide other considerations that will need to go back to executive, the executive will then consider those other considerations and make a further determination on whether or not the land will be sold.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to take this opportunity, if I can, to thank Mrs. Lehman and the legal team and also all the planning officers, because as members will have seen, there's an awful lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes at a very difficult time for the council with all the pressures of COVID, and yet these decisions have been moving forward. So thank you all very much for that, and if you could pass that back, Dawn, to anyone who's helping you in legal as well, that it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Any other comments or questions from members? Yes, a very enthusiastic Alan Bradford. Alan, Councillor Bradford. I think you might be muted.
Another mistake, I've unmuted. I've got too many faces there. There you go. Gets you all a bit of humour. Keeps your sense of humour going. Anyhow, this afternoon, Mr. Chairman, if I'm not about understand, now 11:30 and till 2:30 is a waste of a lot of time for me, and I really, sorry, all right. It's a great shame other one's pulled.
Absolutely. I mean, it's only something that's obviously cropped up this morning, so it was beyond our control, and because obviously we've advertised the application on page 29 as being heard this afternoon, we unfortunately can't bring that forward, so we will have to take that at the allotted time.
Okay, so does that give the opportunity for perhaps the committee, if they wanted to go and have a look independently, to have a look at this site? Is that no, yes, or what?
I think, as you're aware, Councillor Bradford, the rules on site visits at the moment are something that we can't deal with. I mean, members need to make sure that anything that they do is compliant with the COVID regulations and those issues. So it's up to members how they spend their time, but it's their choice as to what they do. But we've got to be careful that obviously members are adhering to the rules and regulations in terms of essential travel, which is and the issues that we've got. So I think probably all I can say at this point is we probably need to draw this morning's business to a close. Can I thank you all for your involvements, and we will restart again this afternoon at 2:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All members of the committee should have their video on, but will remain muted until the chairman invites them to speak.
Good afternoon.
All members of the press and public will remain muted until they have registered to speak, and the chairman will let them know when they can make their representation. The format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published, and a copy of the officer presentations can be found on the committee website.
Thank you very much. Can I also? I think we might need to just check with Councillor Glassford as to whether his system is working, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Can I welcome you all to the committee this afternoon for development control? We have only one application before us this afternoon because the second application on your list has been withdrawn, so it is just the one application. The application itself will be presented by the officers, and then that will be followed by a public speaking time. Members will then debate and decide on the application. Just to remind members that if you wish to speak, please indicate via the online chat and I will call you in turn. During the debate, we will have a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will then vote on this resolution in turn, and they will have to also confirm that they have been present throughout the application being considered and the debate, and they will then vote for, against, or abstain. The votes will then be counted and the result announced. I'll now ask the officers and councillors who will be taking part in the meeting to confirm that they can see and hear me and to introduce themselves. So if we can start with Mr. Noon.
Yes, hello there. My name is Adrian Noon. I'm the lead officer for the East District presenting the application this afternoon, and I can hear and see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. De Vries.
Good morning, afternoon even. I can see and hear everyone, and I'm the lead officer supporting Adrian this afternoon.
Thank you. From our legal team, Mrs. Lehman.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that my name is Dawn Lehman. I am legal advisor to the committee, and I can confirm that I can hear and see you.
Thank you. And from our Democratic Services, Mrs. Nicholson.
Good afternoon, members. I confirm that I can see and hear you, and I'm the committee manager for this afternoon.
Thank you very much. We now come to the members of the committee. I think Councillor Glassford.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman. Yes, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Cathy Pearce, Westover Ward. I confirm I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Sedgemoor District Councillor Alistair Hendry for Burnham-on-Sea Central, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Councillor Murphy. I am the ward member for Burnham North, and I can see and hear you clearly.
Thank you. Councillor Revens.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Bill Revens, representing North Petherton Ward on Sedgemoor District Council. I can confirm that I can see and hear everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chairman. Yes, it's Stuart Kingham, ward member for the West Poldens, and I can hear and see all.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
Yes, Brian Bolt, ward councillor for Cannington and Wemden. I can see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Is Councillor Perry present? No, okay.
Doesn't seem to be connected.
Okay. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Tony Grimes, Deputy Chairman, Barrow Ward. I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, myself, Councillor Filmer. I'm chairman of the committee and confirm that I have heard all the comments from members and officers. Just to also mention for those present that we do have members of the public present, some of whom are here as registered as speakers. Others are here to observe the meeting, as are members and officers of Sedgemoor District Council, including the portfolio holder for development. If we move on to the agenda, members, the first item is apologies for absence. And Mrs. Nicholson, can you just confirm the apologies we've had for this afternoon?
Thank you, Chairman. The apologies we've received for this afternoon is Councillor Bradford, Councillor Granter, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Scott and Councillor Facey.
Thank you very much. If we take the next item, which is urgent business, I'm not advised that we have any urgent business that isn't already covered by our agenda. The next item is public speaking time. For those members of the public who've registered to speak, the process will be that we'll have the presentation of the application by the officers. We'll then ask you to address the committee. You'll have 3 minutes to do so. The format it will follow is Mrs. Nicholson will enable your microphone. We'll then just ask you to confirm that the microphone is working, and then you will have the 3 minutes to address the committee. When 2 minutes have gone and you've got 1 minute left to go, you will hear a bell, which hopefully Mrs. Nicholson will demonstrate. Thank you. And that, as I say, just to remind you, is 1 minute to go with your speaking time. At the end of the 3 minutes, we'll obviously then ask you to draw your comments to a close. Item 4 on the agenda is the declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for the application on page 29? I'm not seeing any, so that's fine. So we then move to the application itself, and as I say, we're on page 29 of your report. And Mr. Noon, would you like to introduce this for us, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application made under Section 73 to vary a condition of a previous permission, which granted consent for 2 holiday units with associated parking and access arrangements. The original condition included a clause that prevented the occupation of the holiday units for more than 3 months in any year. The proposal is to strike that clause from the condition to allow the units to be occupied for holiday purposes for longer than 3 months in any calendar year. The other aspects of that condition would remain intact, and there would be no changes at all to the layout, access or detailing of the units. So we're solely looking at that, just simply the removal of that one clause from the condition. To go through the application, the first slide, just to show the location of the site as a whole, just to the west of the Magic Roundabout, which is just here. And the next slide, just to identify the 2 units that are the subject of this application. It's the northern two units, which were the first approval. There is the same condition.
Mr. Noon, if you can just bear with us 1 minute, we've only literally just gone on to the second screen, so there is a little bit of a delay.
Apologies.
That's okay.
Right, so this one just shows, as I say, the top 2, the northern 2 units, which are covered by this application. There is a similar, in fact identical condition on the 4 units to the south. That is not subject to this application. If they wanted to remove the clause from that permission, they would have to make a second Section 73 application to do so. So we are just looking at the first 2 units. Slide number 3 to show you the approved layout. As I said at the beginning, no changes to this layout, access arrangements or any other aspect of the proposal are included in this application. And then just courtesy, firstly, of Google Earth, from Street View, there, just to show there is the site. It's behind a hedge and a fence. We can just see in the foreground here the first 2 units that are covered by this application. And then the next photograph will show you just a detail of one of those units. Hopefully that's there. That's courtesy of the applicant's own website, just the most up-to-date photograph, because obviously in the current conditions I haven't made a site visit, but with previous site visits from dealing with the most recent application and also what is available on the website to view, there clearly have been no changes, and the application relates solely to the holiday occupancy restriction, and as such a site visit has not been deemed necessary given the available information. And then finally, just moving to the key issues. And that is just simply we are looking at the principle of the change of the condition. In other words, would we still adequately maintain suitable control over the holiday occupancy of these units? The amended wording does reflect our standard approach. We did a lot of work on our holiday occupancy conditions around the time of some difficult applications at Diamond Farm. We reviewed our position as far as holiday or the wording of the holiday occupancy condition. What is now proposed reflects our standard condition that we impose on all permissions now. That condition was evolved following the difficulties at Diamond Farm, and at the time we took council's advice as to how we should approach this. So by simply bringing the condition into line with the council's standard approach to holiday occupancy conditions, I can see no reason why we should resist this, and the application is therefore recommended for approval. The condition should be amended and all relevant conditions of the original approval brought forward onto a new decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you'll see, we have a couple of speakers on this application. So if we start with Clive Panshow, please. Mr. Nicholson, if you could enable the microphone. And if Mr. Panshow, could you confirm that the microphone is working?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. We can hear you too. So just to remind you, you've got the 3 minutes. The bell will go when there's 1 minute to go. And just to confirm, you're speaking on behalf of the Parish Council today.
I am indeed.
Terrific. Start when you're ready, please.
Thank you. The Parish Council strongly object to this application to remove the variation of Condition 3 of the planning permission granted under 17/16/75, and especially to use these holiday chalets for occupation by one family for longer than 3 months. Cheddar is a tourist area, and these lodges were granted planning permission for tourism purposes, and definitely not as semi-permanent or permanent first or second homes in open countryside. Darwin, that's Cheddar Woods, across the road, which is the A371, is a 25-acre site with excess of 200 holiday lodges in the ANOB and has exactly the same planning clauses when granted their permissions. The Cheddar Neighbourhood Plan has clearly identified this area for tourism and not for permanent residences, so these lodges would be lost to tourism if this Clause 3 was removed. Policy EE2 looks to support and enhance existing and proposed tourist-based activities. This would deflect from this. So please reject this application to remove Clause 3 and keep these lodges as per their original purpose as holiday accommodation under the original planning application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And we have a second speaker, Councillor Finneran. Again, if we could enable Councillor Finneran's mic and just confirm that it is working, please.
Yes, I can confirm that, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Councillor Finneran, as you know, you've got the 3 minutes. Start when you're ready to go, and you'll get the bell at 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. In 2016, this application was permitted for 2 holiday lodges. It was specifically conditioned with this condition to make sure that the site was only used for tourist occupation. In 2017, an additional 4 lodges were allowed on this site, again as holiday accommodation. I would like to draw the attention of councillors to the location of this application. This application site is within the green wedge that is in the Cheddar Neighbourhood Plan, and the Cheddar Neighbourhood Plan was made year before last, to protect the area between the settlements of Cheddar and Axbridge. And the zone was deemed by the inspector to be worthy of retention despite objections from developers to the contrary. You're now presented with an application to remove this condition placed upon these holiday lodges based upon evidence from persons who wish to purchase them to live in them permanently. This is exactly what the conditions strove to avoid and goes directly against the green wedge in the neighbourhood plan. The justification for the additional lodges was based upon the success of the first 2 as holiday accommodation, so to remove this condition seems both counterproductive to the aims of the original condition and perverse as it is outside the development boundary. I would request councillors to uphold the aims of the development plan and the Cheddar Neighbourhood Plan Policy BE5, the green wedge, by refusing this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Noon, before I come to members, obviously the issue's been raised about the potential purchasers of this, highlighting that they wish to live in them permanently. Could you just confirm what the position is in relation to permanent use of these?
Sorry about that. First of all, just wanted to underline that the proposal is not for the removal of the holiday occupancy condition. It is for the amendment of. Currently, it has 3 clauses. It is simply for the deletion of the middle one of those clauses, as set out in the report, in the history section. So what we would retain would be the requirement that the holiday lodges shall be occupied for tourism purposes only, and shall not be occupied as a person's sole or main residence. Now, that would preclude someone buying it as a second home and choosing then to live here. It would also preclude someone living or staying in here as their sole or main residence. So from that point of view, this was that restriction has been considered to be adequate to ensure that holiday accommodation with that clause on it will be occupied for tourism purposes and by holiday makers, and not as a permanent residence. So I know the applicant in their supporting case did sort of refer to the possibility that people between houses might want somewhere short term to live. Well, they wouldn't comply with that because 1, they would be living there, and 2, it would be their sole or main residence. In terms of someone who bought it as a second home, then we would then be able to look at that. If they were staying there for lengthy periods of time, we would have to come to a judgment as to whether or not that was for tourism purposes. And if it was felt, by looking at the circumstances of their occupation, that it was not tourism and they were in fact living there, then that clause of the condition 2 in my recommendation would still bite on them. So yes, I would like to assure members that the thrust of the holiday occupancy remains and has been assessed as being a robust way of dealing with this. We've also got the backup that whoever is there, the site owner, be that the owner of the unit or the operator of the site, has to maintain an up-to-date register of all stayers there. So we would have that to look at, as well as the information gleaned from enforcement investigations in relation to the first part of the clause. So from that point of view, I am confident that it would remain a robust control as envisaged in the original consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any comments or questions, please?
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
We'll go with Councillor Murphy and then Councillor Hendry.
Okay. Just a clarification, if I may. I heard Mr. Noon say that they have petitioned to remove the 3 months time limit for tourism. Does that mean to remove it entirely so that it can be used all the year round, or will there be a consideration for, say, deciding it's not 3 months, it's actually 6 months or 5 months or 4 months, or is there some other consideration about that? I just was rather vague about that. I couldn't quite understand. Could Mr. Noon clarify that for us?
Yep, certainly can. Mr. Noon?
You.
Yes, the permission as it stands, just going to page in the papers, here we are, page 30. The condition as it stands allows all year occupation. So I think we've moved away from the original holiday occupancy conditions that we were imposing probably a matter of decades ago now, that would say everywhere has to have an unoccupied month in January or February usually. So this site, from its original approval, can operate all year round. Clause B at the moment states the holiday lodges shall not be occupied by the same person or family for more than 3 months in any 12-month period. That's the only bit they want to remove. So it's not a continuous 3 months. If someone, say it was bought as a second home and that family came down to stay for more than 3 months over a 1 year period, which is probably not unreasonable of a second home, but rented it out for holiday accommodation the rest of the time, they would be caught by that. And I think that's what's putting off potential purchasers. So it is only that bit that is removed, and with A and A and C of the old condition remaining as A and B of the condition number 2 in my recommendation, that's what bites, and that controls for tourism purposes only, and not as a sole place of residence. Hopefully that reassures you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm reassured.
Thank you. We've got a couple of councillors who've registered, so we've got Councillors Hendry, Kingham and Grimes. So Councillor Hendry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, the units are obviously in place, they're obviously used, they're obviously up together and they're very new. You can see that. So the purpose is they have to be lived in at some point and used. If somebody has this as a holiday home, whatever the case may be, and they want to come for 8 weeks in March and April, then 8 weeks again, September, October, I don't see a problem with that. They should be allowed to do this. Nobody intends to use it for the whole 52 weeks of the year straight through as a continuous home. That's not the application. So therefore, on that basis, the actual clause for this 3 months, it should be overrun, it should be taken away, because I just don't see a problem. The units are there, they have to be used. If somebody wants to use it twice or even 3 times a year, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 16 weeks, as long as they're not there for the whole 52 weeks, no problem at all, Mr. Chairman. I'm quite happy with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Obviously, with the 6 being under one ownership, it's easy to keep a register, and I presume the register is up to date and is all legal and everything's sort of as it should be. But I notice in the report that they've actually advertised the 2 lodges, and they've had rather a large amount of people interested in these 2 lodges. If they're sold, how is it going to be monitored to make sure that these are kept as holiday occupation? With one owner, it's easy because you've only got one owner. But if you've suddenly got 2 owners, which could be anywhere in the country, how is it going to be monitored to make sure that these people are using the conditions that we're looking at this afternoon? At the moment, I haven't got a problem, but I would just like to make sure that we've got something in place to monitor it and make sure they are being used as they should be.
Thank you. Mr. Noon.
Yes, understood. I'm suggesting that condition 2 of my recommendation, part B of that, which is carried forward from the current permission, but we are putting the onus of register keeping onto the site operator and or owners. So if the site operator decided he was going to step back from running a holiday business himself and sells the unit and then sort of takes the ground rent, the requirement to maintain the register would fall on the owners, whoever they are, of the unit. So yes, we would always have the ability to enforce that given the wording of the condition.
Thank you. The next I've got is Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is only really bringing it in line with other sites around. So I think on that basis and listening to what Mr. Noon said, I'm going to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Revens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. When I look at, I can see why they want to remove condition B, but I just want to make sure that condition A is sufficiently tight that it's enforceable. How might we define tourism purposes, and how might we define not being a main residence? Thank you.
Mr. Noon.
We'd obviously have to look at the facts surrounding an individual's occupation. We would look at their, firstly, have they got another residence somewhere else? Secondly, are they, what is their status? We can look at the council tax records. We can look at the bill payment records, particularly, in relation to is someone staying there? Are the bills with someone else? We would also obviously have to interview anyone who was there. We felt in breach to find out what their purpose of staying is. It is a wording that we have adopted elsewhere. It is the current wording as well. So, if someone was there for up to 3 months, we would still have to look at whether or not they were bona fide tourists as per the first part of the condition. That drafting of that did come from very detailed legal advice we took at the time at Diamond Farm. It reflects good practice within the tourism industry, and we have not had any problems enforcing it elsewhere where this sort of thing has come into debate. I accept the future is to a degree unknown, and we can't anticipate all circumstances of occupation, but we haven't experienced any difficulty with this wording that we are using routinely elsewhere.
Mr. Nick, could I also just one moment, Councillor Evans, could I also just confirm in terms of this, there was guidance that went with this condition when we first introduced it, outlining the sort of things that would be the tests that we would bring in about using local doctors, whether your car's registered at that address, and those sort of triggers.
Yes, it is appended to our enforcement procedures, and as to how we will interpret this. So, I mean, that is an publicly available document. So we can all look at that, and we would have to apply that to the circumstances we might find at the site should a complaint be lodged.
Councillor Evans.
Have we been able to successfully enforce this condition elsewhere in the district?
I am unaware of any cases that have come up where that condition has proved unenforceable, where we have relied on it and have been told by an inspector that it is not an appropriate approach. Usually on these issues, the enforcement will sort of flush out whether or not someone has been in one of these places in breach of the condition, and generally speaking they will either move on, or if they feel they have a case, make an application to deal with it. But we have certainly got no I've received no heads up that anywhere has thrown up a problem with this wording in terms of bad wording for the purposes of enforcement. And we do investigate lots of sites and very often clear things up where people will hold their hands up and say, all right, fine, we'll stop doing that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman. The owner of this site is not asking for anything unreasonable. He's not asking to have somebody buy one of the units off him to move in 52 weeks or even 18 months. That's not the case at all here. Everything he's asking for is a reasonable request. I said before, I don't have to go over it again. I don't see any problem with this whatsoever, and I'm happy to second Councillor Tony Grimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
I was just going to go for the second again.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from members? If not, we have the recommendation that's been moved and seconded to grant permission for the amendment to the condition. So I will come round to members to take their votes in turn, and also just to confirm that they've been present for the entire debate. We'll start this time with Councillor Glassford.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I have listened to the whole debate. I am in favour for this application for the change.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, I've been present for the whole debate and support the officer's recommendation to grant permission.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I've been sat here, seen and heard everything, and I'm fully in favour to grant permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have been fully present. I've heard the whole debate and seen the whole debate, and I am in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been present for the whole debate and listened to the presentation, and my vote is in favour of the proposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've been present through the whole debate, and I'm in favour of the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
I was present throughout the whole application debate, and I'm for the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I'm for. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've also seen and heard the full debate, and am for the proposal to amend the condition. Mrs. Nicholson, is that, just to confirm, that's all members?
Yes, Chairman, that's all members. So the vote was unanimous, and that's 9.
Thank you very much. So permission is granted for the amendment to the condition. Right, members, that actually brings us to the end of this afternoon's business.